All right, so today we're going to really dig deep into the life and career of Eminem. You guys sent in a ton of material, and wow, what a story. From a pretty tough childhood in Detroit to global rap superstar.
Yeah, it's not just his journey, It's
Hmm.
really intertwined with the evolution of hip-hop itself. I mean, he came up at a time when things were changing, and his style really pushed boundaries.
And those lyrics too, right? Super controversial.
Yeah.
But that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. So to get this started, we need to go way back to the beginning. And the sources paint a pretty vivid picture of his childhood. Marshall Bruce Mathers III was born in Missouri. But the story really begins in Detroit?
Yeah, and not an easy start. Abandoned by his dad, him and his mom, they moved around a lot. Poverty, instability. But you know what? You can see how those experiences kind of planted the seeds, for the resilience that we see throughout his life.
It's hard to imagine. The guy who had become Slim Shady as a kid, getting bullied. But the sources say it was brutal, even hospitalized after a really bad beating. School wasn't a good fit either. Dropped out at 17. It seems like a pretty bleak picture.
But then he finds an outlet, right? A way to process all that pain and frustration. Language. He gets into comic books, immerses himself in stories, and then hip-hop.
And that's where it all begins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eminem the rapper is born, 14 years old, rapping under the name Eminem, which of course morphs into Eminem. But he doesn't just stay in his bedroom writing rhymes. He dives headfirst into the Detroit rap scene, late 80s, early 90s. Can you imagine that? This incredibly vibrant scene, full of talent, predominantly black artists. And then you have this young white kid trying to make a name for himself.
No, it couldn't have been easy at all. The sources even mention, the prejudice, the skepticism he faced, but he didn't back down. He used that as fuel, honing his skills in those freestyle battles.
Wow, those verbal sparring matches.
Yeah, where rappers go head-to-head, spitting rhymes off the top of their heads. It was a trial by fire.
And he came out stronger.
Absolutely. Not just unscathed, but respected.
Yeah, he earned his stripes through pure skill and charisma.
Absolutely. He even teamed up with other rappers, formed groups like Soul Intent, D12, with his friend and mentor Proof.
Those early collaborations must have been so crucial.
Oh, yeah, definitely crucial. Allowed him to experiment, refine his style, and really build a network within the Detroit scene.
So he's got the talent to drive the connections. You'd think success was right around the corner. But his first independent album, Infinite, released in '96, it didn't exactly take off.
No, it was a commercial flop. Some critics even said he sounded too much like other rappers, lacking that unique voice that would later make him a global icon.
It's crazy to think this setback, this perceived failure, it actually became the catalyst for one of the most fascinating transformations in music history.
And that's where Slim Shady comes in.
Feeling defeated, frustrated. Eminem creates this alter ego, a darker, more twisted version of himself. Slim Shady. And through Slim Shady, he unleashes everything. His darkest humor, violent fantasies, biting social commentary.
It was raw, provocative,
Yeah.
and undeniably captivating.
And it caught the ear of the right person.
Dr. Dre.
A legend in hip-hop. Dr. Dre wasn't just a rapper and producer. He was a tastemaker
Oh, yeah, a visionary.
who shaped the sound of a generation.
Exactly.
And when he heard Eminem's Slim Shady EP in '97, he recognized something special.
That rawness, you couldn't deny it.
It was a gamble, though, right?
Yeah.
To sign this young white rapper with such controversial lyrics. But Dr. Dre saw the potential.
Yeah, he saw beyond the surface.
And that gamble, it paid off big time. In 1999, the Slim Shady LP, produced by Dr. Dre, explodes onto the scene, hitting #2 in the Billboard 200.
A game changer.
It felt dangerous, exciting, totally different. Songs like My Name Is and Guilty Conscience,
Instant anthems.
showcasing his signature style, that blend of humor, aggression, and storytelling. It's like he wasn't just rapping. He was creating sonic worlds, pushing the boundaries of hip-hop.
But with that success came a price.
Oh, yeah.
The explicit lyrics, the dark humor, the exploration of violence. I mean, it ignited a firestorm of controversy.
Parents were outraged. Politicians denouncing him.
Critics were ready to pounce.
So what does Eminem do?
Yeah.
Does he shy away?
Yeah.
Tone down the lyrics.
Yep.
Apologize. Nope.
He doubles down.
2000, the Marshall Mathers LP.
Bigger, bolder.
And even more controversial. This album is pure, raw emotion.
Anger, vulnerability. Brutal honesty.
It was unsettling and captivating. It broke sales records, selling over 1.7 million copies in the first week. But even more than that, it cemented his status as a cultural phenomenon.
A voice you couldn't ignore.
And this album gave us some of his most iconic tracks, the real Slim Shady, The Way I Am, and of course Stan. Stan wasn't just a song. It became a cultural touchstone, a term to describe obsessive fandom,
It's amazing how he crafted this narrative,
blending genres,
incorporating Dido's vocals.
and exploring the dark side of fame. Groundbreaking.
It really tapped into those universal feelings, loneliness, isolation, that desire for connection.
Even if that connection is with someone
Yeah.
that you've never actually met. It's genius how he blends these complex themes
Yeah.
with his signature style. But while his career was skyrocketing, his personal life was imploding. His relationship with his mother became a very public feud, and his relationship with his wife, Kim, equally volatile.
Breakups, reconciliations.
All this drama played out in the tabloids, and even in his music. Songs like Kim and 97, Bonnie and Clyde, while disturbing, they offer a glimpse into the turmoil.
Yeah, it's like what's beneath the surface.
But I think that's what makes Eminem so compelling.
He's not just a rapper, he's a storyteller, a confessor.
Someone who lays bare his soul for the world to see.
Raw, messy, real.
You might not always like what you hear,
But you can't deny its authenticity.
and we'll leave it there for now. But trust me, there's so much more to explore. Next time we'll dive into the Eminem Show, his foray into Hollywood with 8 Mile, and the dark period of addiction and loss that almost took it all away. Stay tuned. Welcome back, you guys. So last time we left off with Eminem at the top of his game with the Marshall Mathers LP. But life, it's never a straight line up.
It's true, life throws curveballs, and Eminem's story definitely reflects that.
Absolutely. So what happens next?
Well, he doesn't just rest on his laurels. He could have easily just kept making similar albums, playing it safe, but he pushes himself further.
And that's what he does in 2002 with the Eminem Show.
Yeah, this album felt different, more introspective, maybe even a bit more mature, but still undeniably Eminem.
Right. Still that raw energy and honesty, but maybe with a bit more self-awareness.
Exactly. And the sources point to this album as a turning point in his career. He tackles more personal themes, his relationship with his daughter Haley, his struggles with fame, that constant media scrutiny.
It felt like he was letting us in a little bit more.
Yeah, it was like he was inviting us into his world, sharing his vulnerabilities.
And then there's Without Me. That song was everywhere that year.
That was such a clever track. It was like he was poking fun at himself at the whole celebrity circus, but also reminding everyone that he was still at the top of his game.
Totally. And that theme of self-awareness, reflecting on his own impact and legacy, it really becomes a bigger part of his music from this point on.
Definitely, you can see that evolution happening.
But 2002 wasn't just about music. It was also the year of 8 Mile.
Ah, yes, the semi-autobiographical film about a struggling Detroit rapper trying to make it big.
And it was a huge success, critically and commercially.
It really resonated with people because it wasn't just a typical rags to riches story. It showed the grit, the struggle, the realities of chasing a dream.
And the soundtrack was incredible.
Oh, yeah. Lose Yourself. I mean, come on. That song became an anthem for anyone chasing their dreams, pushing through adversity.
It even won him an Oscar for Best Original Song. The first rapper to ever achieve that.
It was a huge moment for hip-hop, a real testament to Eminem's crossover appeal.
He had it all. Music, film awards, you name it. But behind the scenes, a different story was unfolding.
The sources paint a darker picture of this period in his life. By the mid-2000s, his addiction to prescription drugs had spiraled out of control.
It was a difficult time for him and for his fans.
He was battling his demons, withdrawing from the public eye. His health was suffering.
And then in 2006, tragedy struck Proof. His close friend and D12 bandmate was killed in a shooting in Detroit.
It was a devastating loss for Eminem, and it sent him into a deeper spiral of grief and addiction.
There was a real fear that he might not make it out of that darkness.
But even in those dark times, there's always a flicker of hope.
And for Eminem, that flicker came in the form of a wake-up call, a near-fatal overdose in 2007.
It was a moment of reckoning. He had to confront his demons and choose life.
And he did. He entered rehab and began the long and difficult journey to recovery.
And his music became a crucial part of that healing process.
In 2009, he released Relapse, an album that chronicled his struggles with addiction, the psychological toll it took on him.
It's not an easy album to listen to. It's raw, it's confessional, and at times deeply unsettling.
But it was also incredibly powerful and honest.
It was like he was inviting us into his recovery journey, sharing his pain and vulnerability with the world.
It wasn't the triumphant comeback album that some might have expected.
No, it was a necessary step in his healing process, a raw and unflinching look at the darkness he had been through.
And then came Recovery in 2010.
This album felt different. It had a sense of hope, a celebration of his newfound sobriety.
It was like a testament to the power of the human spirit to overcome adversity.
Absolutely. There were anthems of hope and resilience like Not Afraid and, of course, Love the Way You Lie. His collaboration with Rihanna that explored the complexities of toxic relationships.
Recovery was a huge success commercially, and critically it won a Grammy for Best Rap Album. But more than that, it felt like a genuine expression of his growth as an artist and as a human being.
It connected with so many people who were struggling with their own demons. It offered a message of hope, a possibility of redemption.
And what's remarkable is that he doesn't shy away from the darkness. He confronts it head on. He uses his music as a form of therapy, a way to process his pain and share his experience with the world.
And in doing so, he creates this powerful connection with his listeners. It's like he's saying, hey, I've been there, I've struggled, I've fallen, but I got back up and you can too.
It's a powerful message.
Absolutely. And that message of resilience, of refusing to be defined by your past, that's what makes Eminem such an enduring and inspiring figure.
So we're talking about an artist with a career spanning over 2 decades, and he's still going strong.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you think about it. By the 2010s, Eminem wasn't just a rapper, he was a cultural icon.
Absolutely. His influence went way beyond music.
He had this massive platform and he used it to speak out about things he cared about.
Like in 2013 with the Marshall Mathers LP2.
Ah, yeah,
Yeah.
sort of a sequel to his iconic 2000 album.
It was like he was revisiting his past self, but with this new perspective, a maturity that came from overcoming so much.
The sources really emphasize that evolution, he wasn't just rehashing old themes, he was digging deeper, exploring his psyche, his place in the world, his legacy.
It felt like a more mature Eminem, but still with that edge, that raw honesty.
Right, and he even collaborated with a new generation of artists like Kendrick Lamar and Skylar Grey.
Showing that he was open to evolving musically.
Exactly, embracing different sounds and styles.
And then there's the political side of things in albums like Revival and Kamikaze. He really went after President Trump, tackled issues like racial injustice and gun violence.
It sparked a lot of debate. Some people criticized him, saying he was out of touch or just trying to be controversial.
But you got to admit, he wasn't afraid to use his platform to address important social issues.
And that resonated with a lot of people, especially younger listeners.
He's like he was saying, hey, I'm not just here to entertain you. I'm here to make you think.
And even with all the controversy, he never lost sight of his craft. His lyrical skills were as sharp as ever.
Oh yeah, the wordplay, the flow, the rhyme schemes, it was mind-blowing.
He kept pushing himself creatively, never satisfied with just repeating what he'd done before.
And he kept surprising us. In 2020, he dropped Music to Be Murdered By, this dark cinematic album exploring themes of violence, mental illness, self-reflection.
It was a reminder that Eminem could still shock us, make us think, push the boundaries of hip-hop.
So after all this, where do we even begin to assess his legacy?
It's complex, right? On the one hand, he's one of the best-selling music artists of all time. He broke barriers for white artists in hip-hop. He won countless awards, even an Oscar.
And on the other hand, he's been incredibly controversial. His lyrics have been accused of being misogynistic, homophobic, violent.
It's a conversation we can't shy away from. We have to acknowledge both the brilliance and the problematic aspects of his work.
Absolutely. We can't just gloss over the negative stuff. But I also think his story is ultimately one of redemption. He battled addiction, faced incredible personal tragedy, and came out stronger.
His journey reminds us that even when we mess up, even when we fall short, we're capable of growth and change.
It's a powerful message of resilience and the possibility of finding redemption even in the darkest of times.
So when we look back at Eminem's career, what do
Yeah.
we see?
I see an artist who constantly pushed himself creatively and personally, who wasn't afraid to challenge conventions, and who ultimately used his platform to speak his truth.
I think that's a pretty good summary. He was a voice for the voiceless, a provocateur, a storyteller, and ultimately a survivor.
Eminem's story, with all its complexities and contradictions, is a reflection of the human experience itself. It's a reminder that we're all capable of both great and terrible things.
It's about the choices we make, the struggles we face, and the power we have to shape our own destinies.
And for you, our listener, we hope this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for the man behind the music, the story, the artistry, the resilience.
If you're intrigued, we encourage you to explore his music further, read his interviews, delve deeper into the context of his work.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through the life and times of Eminem. It's been a wild ride.
We'll catch you next time for another deep dive.